The following is a Spirit Street production.
Football is back, people. We're excited. Big 12 Insiders is excited. We're going to be talking about it from here on out. Enough of this realignment stuff, unless something actually happens. But it's football time. Today, we're going to be breaking down the top 12 Big 12 in-conference games. We're going to break all those down from 12 to 1, let you know what I think are the best games. This is the Big 12 Insiders.
Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show, presented by Synergy Financial Partners. Now let's go to booming North Texas, home of Studio 73. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Big 12's Insiders. This is Big B, Brien Hanley, along with Tim Fitzgerald. Fitz, how's it going today, my man?
Good. I need to alter that open to say, here's your host, Brien Hanley, and his talking monkey friend named Fitz. I
like it. I like it. And before we get going, man, again, everybody want to thank everybody's support. Remember to like, follow, subscribe to the channel. We've been growing like crazy. I know it was summertime, and it is what it is, but we still were able to put out shows for you. Very soon, we're going to get ramped back up to 5 days a week. So we thank you, number one, for the support. And please, if you haven't already, remember to like, follow, subscribe, but definitely leave those comments because that's what helps the algorithm. And I love to go back and forth, and we see every one of them. So we appreciate it. So, but we're going to break down these games, Fitz. Top 12 games within the Big 12 conference. You know, yesterday we did non-conference. Today we're going to do in-conference. And I think there's some really good ones. There's going to be some teams that get left out of here, people, okay? And it's okay if you disagree with that. Let us know if you disagree. Be respectful. Don't be disrespectful. But if you disagree, that's totally okay to disagree. Let us know, what your thoughts are, and we'll take it from there. But here we go from 12 to 1. 12, and this one is a tricky one, Fitz, because it's later in the season. Utah at UCF. It doesn't happen until November 29th. The floor, first of all, I think everybody kind of agrees that Utah is going to be a very, very good football team.
Yes.
UCF, we don't know. At this time, they could have 8 wins or they could have 4 wins, because, and you mentioned it before we came on the air, and you're right. Their ceiling is very high, but their floor is very low. And we just don't know exactly where it's going to be. But I will say this about UCF, and UCF fans, you can tell me that I'm wrong, and if I am, okay, that's fine. But I think their season is going to be defined by Florida and what they do against Florida. If they go and win that, now granted, they got to win early and they got to play well early, but if they go win that game in Florida and they go win, yeah, I think that defines their season. And I'll be willing to say, I know people are going to say the Sugar Bowl win over Auburn. I'm willing to say if they can go win that game, it's the biggest win in the history of the program just because of the conference that they're currently in now, Fitz, and what that will mean for the future.
I agree with you because there are so many in-state recruiting ramifications for that game. If you can get on top of Florida right now and step over them while they're struggling and do so in the swamp, oh man, there's going to be a lot of recruits that notice that.
Yes.
And we've been saying this since they joined. If UCF starts tapping into that Florida talent even deeper, they're going to get scary good. And
they are.
This season is an opportunity to put a little jet propulsion into that growth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I am this game against Utah, like I said, it could be a very, very tricky game based on what's going on in the season with UCF and Utah, just because of when it happens. Like I said, it's November 29th. So it's at the end of the season. So we'll see. But got that one at number 12. At number 11, I contemplated putting this one on higher because I think the potential for this to be a much bigger game is Iowa State at Kansas. The game's going to be at Arrowhead. It's November 9th. It'll be a little cooler. The thing about this is, depending on how they split up the tickets, Iowa State might have as many fans at this game as Kansas does because Iowa State loves Kansas City. And that's where the game is going to be played because Kansas is doing you know, the rebuild or the remodel or whatever on their stadium. And I think Iowa State's also going to be better than what people think. I think people got them picked. I saw some people had them picked like 11th in the conference. I just don't believe that's going to happen. I think Iowa State's going to be much better than that. And I think this is going to be a whale of a football game.
This is an interesting thing for Kansas. First of all, last I heard, ticket sales for Arrowhead were lagging a little bit. Look, that might be just a function of when you are getting season tickets for your home field, you want to make sure you get your seats and you hold on to your seats for the year. So maybe people are just kind of pacing it out before they buy their tickets. But I'm telling you, Big B, if they're leaving 30K open at Arrowhead, 25K, I would say we'll fill it.
Absolutely.
It might be all over deck, but they'll be there.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be scared of early November weather.
Nope.
Oh, I mean, in the Midwest, it could be 75 degrees or -5. Who knows?
Right.
But they'll be there. It won't feel like necessarily a home game other than the traditions that will be there for Kansas football.
Right.
But they love coming to Kansas City, and now they get to do it for a football game, a meaningful football game. They'll be there.
Absolutely. And I can't wait for that game. Like I said, it's going to be a big deal. I'm really interested to see what Kansas does with these games that are in Arrowhead. I'm just really interested to see what the fan support is going to be, because Kansas, by all intents and purposes, should be pretty good this year. And if they are, then we're going to find out how much the fans are really that much invested. I'm not expecting them to get 75, 80,000 a game. I'm not expecting that, but I expect at least 50 to 55, I would say. In a stadium that big, you should be able to do that. But we'll see what happens.
Whatever Memorial Stadium is, whatever the booth is, that's right. Should be in Arrowhead, if not more, because the seating will be more plentiful and available. I am intrigued, and in so many ways, you know, they've needed to do the stadium project, and hats off to Travis Goff and everyone over there for doing it while other ADs before him ducked the process and made it even worse.
Right.
But boy, what horrible timing. They might have their best football team right up there in school history. They could have that. I mean, they could win the Big 12 and go to the playoff, that kind of team, and they don't have a home field this year. And it's just unfortunate timing.
Yeah, it is. But hey, maybe the atmosphere is really good, and you know, the kids will enjoy playing there. Fans will enjoy going to the games at Arrowhead. I think they can take advantage of that if done correctly. So next on the list, I've got Kansas State at West Virginia. Tricky game here for Kansas State, Fitz. West Virginia I think is going to be a pretty good team. It looks like they have found themselves after last year, after basically everybody told them that the coach was getting fired. The team was terrible. They had a good schedule last year, so that helped, but you still got to go win the football games. They did that. I think they're going to be better this year. It's a tricky road game for Kansas State.
Yeah, we recorded the PowerCat podcast last night, and I think this was one of my trap games for K-State because they go to Boulder, and that game's going to have a lot of noise around it. I mean, the reuniting of two Big 8 teams, being back in Boulder, Cat fans are excited about that because they love that road trip. They really missed it. The whole Deion Sanders perspective, where will they be? How good will they be? Dylan Edwards going back to Colorado. And you get after that game, and then you fly home, and then you get to fly to Morgantown the next week.
Right.
Against a better team.
Right.
Against a team that has something to say and prove.
Yes.
It's a trap. It's a trap for K-State big time because I think West Virginia is going to be pretty good. I love their makeup of their team. I love the quarterback. I think Neil Brown's finally put his program in place, and it's beginning to work.
Correct. And the thing about it is that trap games, to me, they get teams that aren't as focused as other teams. When you're a focused football team, you know, you're playing somebody, go out and win the football game. And it's not like West Virginia's not any good. It'd be one thing if West Virginia stinks or something like that, but they don't. They're going to be a good football team. So K-State better be ready or it's a loss. I can just tell you that right now. If they're not going to be ready, that's going to be a loss. And I'm not sure a lot of people, when you pencil in Kansas State's schedule, that you're penciling in this game as a loss, but you better pay attention because West Virginia's good. and playing there is never easy, never
No.
easy. So next on the list, we got West Virginia again coming in at number 9. West Virginia at Arizona. Again, we just talked about how good we think West Virginia is going to be. I believe Arizona may be even better, but we're going to see early on about West Virginia, or not West Virginia, excuse me, about Arizona, and find out how good they are, how they are used to the physicality of the conference. This game happens, I think, October 20th. So we'll find out a little bit about them. But again, good matchup, new matchup. It's a new one. Arizona coming over as part of the new conference and the new realignment stuff. But I like this matchup.
You know, maybe it's because it's my conference, but I agree with you. I think this is kind of a cool matchup. This feels like it could be something in the future. But you look at the Big Ten, and you've got, let's say, UCLA going to Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
That just doesn't.
Yeah.
What?
No.
I can't. In fact, I can't think of a game where UCLA could venture in and go someplace that would really intrigue me.
No.
And West Virginia going to Arizona kind of intrigues me. And again, maybe that's just, hometown bias here. And my hometown's the Big 12, but that seems like it could be a pretty exciting pairing and have a future to that series.
Absolutely. Again, I think it's just another feather in the cap for the Big 12. You put this game together that probably doesn't get put together as a non-conference game ever, especially anytime soon, but probably ever. And now all of a sudden they're playing within the conference. The travel may be a little difficult. I understand that part of it, but it's a good matchup between two really good football teams. So good for the Big 12. Next up on the list, we got Arizona at UCF. Again, we just talked at length a little bit about how good we think Arizona is going to be. That quarterback wide receiver duo, top 3 in the country, if not the best in the country, definitely the best in the Big 12. And again, UCF, this game's on November 2nd. So we'll see where we'll see where both of them are, Fitz. I don't want to just say UCF. We'll see where they're at. We got to see about Arizona too. A lot of people, again, are picking them to be pretty good, but it's a new conference, getting used to things. So we're going to find out, and we'll see. I think this is kind of a middle of the road type of game to find out, not just find out where they are, but both teams to understand. UCF's got a little bit more experience in the conference just because they played in it last year. But again, a new matchup that I don't think gets done unless they're playing within a conference. I like it.
I do too. And let's point out, it's the space game. And I'm like a little kid. This is so cool. I love the space game uniforms. It's an important thing to the psychology and history of this UCF program and school. It's always kind of full of hoopla. I think it's a really cool tradition they have, and having it with Arizona this year is doubly cool. I'm in love with the space game. I want to date the space game. I want to take the space game to a movie, but that's not possible. So I'll just watch this game if I can.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break here. We will be back on the other side. We are doing our countdown of the best Big 12 games in conference from 12 to 1. We will be right back.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
At Synergy Financial Partners, the mission is to change the way Americans plan for their financial future. Synergy doesn't just offer you a financial plan. At Synergy, the goal is to help you find your best financial future. Learn more at synergyfinancial.com.
Welcome back to the show. Let's return to Studio 73.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. This is Brien Hanley along with Tim Fitzgerald. Fitz, I've got people on my roof. I don't know if you can hear all the bang. They're on the roof next door. And so I don't know if you can hear it. They're getting a roof over there. A guy just sent me a text just saying, I apologize. And I'm like, well, I mean, if you got to fix the roof, you got to fix the roof. I mean, What do you want me to do about it? So it's fine. It's fine. But
as long as
if you guys are hearing that noise, I apologize.
As long as your roof's not on fire, not because of the fire, but because I'll start singing the song.
Oh, yeah.
But we don't want that.
No, we don't. Absolutely, we don't. Counting down the best Big 12 games from 12 to 1. Next up, we got on the list at number 7 here is Kansas State at Iowa State. This game, again, late in the season, November 30th. Huge game. I think both teams are going to be pretty good. it could very well, Fitz, be a game that decides who goes to the Big 12 championship game. Who knows?
Yep.
Who knows? But I do know this. Kansas State's got a horrible taste in their mouth after what happened last year at the end of the season, losing that snow game to Iowa State. And Iowa State is like, hey, it is what it is. We're a better football team this year than they were last year.
Yep,
You're coming up to Ames. Big football game, Fitz. Huge.
Huge. Farmageddon is going to new levels. Hell, next year it's going to Ireland. And this will be a really fun game. Honestly, I might have put it higher on the list, but that might again be hometown bias. I just think this is a really entertaining series that is beginning to get a lot of friction between the fan bases.
Yeah.
Which wasn't necessarily true. Now, there's two types of rivalries. There's rivalries between schools that are wildly different, and rivalries between schools that are like a civil war of brothers. And this is kind of that. These two schools are a lot alike. The fan bases are a lot alike. They like to drink beer. They like their ag stuff, corn versus wheat. And these schools just don't like each other anymore. It's amazing to watch.
Yeah, it's very amazing. Again, they weren't always the best football schools. They've become better over the years.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what's revved up the rivalry, Fitz, is now they're both pretty good football teams, pretty good football programs. And they're fairly close to each other. I mean, they're not right next door, but they're fairly close. That makes a good rivalry. And you know me, I like hostility, and they are both very hostile towards each other. So it makes it for a good football game. So next up on the list at number 6, we got West Virginia at Oklahoma State. That game is October 5th. We know what we think, or at least we've talked about what we think about West Virginia. Oklahoma State, supposed to be pretty good. People are basically not giving them a lot of credit. They were in the Big 12 championship game last year. They're not getting a lot of love from the national media. I think they have a chip on their shoulder. This is a big football game for them to kind of stake their claim that, hey, man, we're pretty good. We went to the Big 12 title game last year. We're a really good football game. Now, they will have played a couple of teams prior to this, but I still think this is a big game in the Big 12 schedule.
If you don't recognize this, we think West Virginia is the hand grenade rolling around this conference about to explode on someone.
Yep.
We've got a home game for them and 2 road games. They just seem like the team that might be able to go to Stillwater and win. It's a big one. And I think West Virginia's got a really challenging schedule after last year's a little bit more forgiving schedule. But I also think last year maybe prepared them and built the confidence to go win some of these games.
Yeah, it did. And we're going to see, like I said, I think they're going to be a pretty good team, but we're going to see because the schedule is going to challenge them. As we have the next game is Kansas at West Virginia. Again, Kansas, I am a believer in what Kansas is doing. I think Kansas is going to be a good football team. I just do. People talk about have Jalen Daniels. He's got to stay healthy, and he does. Again, that doesn't mean that people are hoping or wishing that he gets hurt. They're just basing it off the history of the last 2 seasons. He's gotten hurt, so he's got to stay healthy because if he doesn't, Kansas is not the same football team.
No.
That's just facts. Now, there's a lot of teams that aren't the same football team if their quarterback has gotten hurt. But with Kansas, there's history of showing that, number 1, he's gotten hurt and been out for the rest of the year. And 2, that they're not as good when he's not on the football team. Right. So he's got to be healthy. And if he is, this is a big game, September 21st in Morgantown, a huge game for both teams. Huge game.
I mean, it's hard to pick a player in this conference that has as much team success tied to him as Jalen Daniels, because with him, I don't even know what the ceiling is. I don't know. I mean, they've got an incredible running back. They've got tight ends, receivers. The old line seems better. With him, they seem like they could do whatever they want to do. They could be as successful as you can imagine. Without him, I'm not saying they drop off the end of the table because they didn't last year.
Right.
And look at the Kansas State game. They rolled out the number 3 guy and should have won that game.
Right.
So that's a sign of a really good football coach and a really good football staff, but there will be a difference. And I think any logical football observer will realize that there will be a drop off with or without him. Again, West Virginia, you got a chance to be the blade in the blender and really mix things up in this conference, because you're all over this list for a good reason.
Absolutely. Number 4 on the list up next, Arizona at Utah. Old Pac-12 game. Again, it's earlier in the season, September 28th, but Utah will have played. Again, we'll get into those games. Arizona will have played a tough opponent within the conference, so they'll know a little bit about what it's about. Having said all of that, this is still a big football game because, again, it's between two teams that I and a lot of people think are going to be really good, especially Utah.
Oh, yeah. This will be a fun measurement of those teams as they kind of really enter into the Big 12. I think it's probably the second step of Big 12 play for them, although Arizona has a non-Big 12 game. It will be interesting to see how they measure up against each other. And I think this will be just a fun game for the rest of the Big 12 to watch.
Yes.
There's going to be so much getting acquainted time, and this is an early dose of here are the best two teams to come in this round of realignment, and now they're going to play head-to-head in a game that has meant something for the last few years. Yeah, this is going to be fun to watch.
Absolutely. Can't wait for it to happen. And again, it's early in the season, or fairly early in the season, so we'll get to see exactly what's going on, and maybe it's a precursor to what happens for the rest of the season for both squads. Number 3, last game before our final break here, Kansas at Kansas State. Could have been higher. They did easily could have been higher, but I think there's two other games that are bigger than this one. Kansas hasn't beat Kansas State, hasn't beat them at all in almost 2 decades. At some point, they got to be able to beat them. I don't know if this is going to be the year, but if it's ever going to be the year, this is supposed to be Kansas, like you mentioned before, one of their best football teams maybe ever, going on the road. At some point, you got to win. And if you're going to be the kind of team that everybody thinks that you're going to be, I think this is a game that you have to try to find a way to win, don't you, Fitz?
Yep. They've lost 15 in a row to K-State. This is a really good team. This is a team capable, as we said, of many things. And again, the misfortune of how the schedule falls. They have a great team. They don't have a home field. They have a great team. They have to go to Kansas State.
Yeah.
If Kansas makes it through this season and is greatly successful, they have a lot of success, maybe even winning at Kansas State, contending for a Big 12 championship. It's like going out to climb a mountain, but there was an ice storm the night before. They've added this layer of challenge to their schedule that was kind of unexpected, but had to happen. There was nothing to prevent it. You had to rebuild that stadium, and now they've got an even slipperier slope to climb.
Yeah, it's tough, but I think this is going to be a whale of a football game. I really do. Again, both teams are going to be good. It's later in the season. I think it's October 26th, I believe, if my eyes aren't failing me. So it's going to be a good football game that I cannot wait to see. So going to take our final break here before we reveal our final 2. Again, we're counting down the best in-conference Big 12 games of the 2024 season. We will be right back.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
At Synergy Financial Partners, the vision is to build the world's largest consumer financial education and empowerment company. Synergy doesn't just offer you a financial plan. At Synergy, the goal is to help you find your best financial future. Learn more at synergyfinancial.com.
Welcome back to the show. Let's return to Studio 73.
All right, welcome back to the Big 12 Insiders. I mean, if it's not one thing, it's another, Fitz. It's one thing that my neighbor is getting a new roof put on his house, and you can hear that. Now we've got the practice tornado siren going off. I mean, it is absolutely unbelievable what is going on specifically at this time. It's crazy. And I feel bad for the roofers because, they're up there. I'm sure they didn't know that thing was going to go off. I hope somebody didn't fall down because it is right next to them. So, Lord have mercy, it's insane. But meanwhile, in my studio, and Dude's now standing behind me, Dude just spent the entire last segment licking his leg.
I don't know what's up with his leg, but it was a great background noise to have that slobbering sound. Trying to concentrate through it. Thanks, dude. You're the man.
I gotcha. Well, we're breaking down the top Big 12 games of the 2024 season. We're at our final two. So at number 2, I've got Oklahoma State at Kansas State. I think this is a huge game. Both teams are going to be very, very good. They're both very well coached. It's earlier in the season. The game's September 28th.
Yeah.
Big game for Oklahoma State. It's on the road. Kansas State feels like they let one get away last year at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State probably feels like, no, we just got ourselves together against you guys that propelled us for the rest of the season. I think it's going to be an outstanding matchup. Can't wait for this one. And again, it's early. We don't have to wait till November for this football game to happen.
Oklahoma State was basically Rocky Balboa last year. They were on the mat. They were bloodied. They were beaten. Everyone had written them off, and all of a sudden they start swinging away and knocking people out. It was really impressive. But this year, as you'll see by the top 2 games, they got their hands full. They are going to decide a lot, if not almost everything, about the pecking order of this conference with this schedule. Yeah. They're going to sort that out, and it starts early in the season. This is, oddly enough, a September game, but the second game of Big 12 season, how the calendar falls this year. And this will be K-State's first Big 12 home game, and I expect it to be rocking. Boy, this one's huge. This one feels like a mainstay of the new conference. This game will be circled by most viewers in the Big 12.
Absolutely. Big football game. And it's one of those games, as you mentioned, a mainstay that could get the conference national attention. Right. And that's what I think is important. This game could get it national attention. Also, like our number 1 game for the Big 12 season this year, 2024 football season this year, Utah at Oklahoma State. I think this game as well. We could have flip-flopped either one of them, but I think the Utah at Oklahoma State is probably a little bit bigger at this particular point. And it just happens to happen the week before the Oklahoma State-Kansas State game, where it's September 21st, where Utah gets its first, I guess they played Baylor earlier, but this is their first big test of the Big 12. I like this. Again, I think it's going to bring a lot of national media attention. A lot of people think Utah is going to win the conference, is going to come in and do their thing. And I mentioned it before. There's so many people out there that just aren't giving Oklahoma State their due, that are kind of underestimating what kind of team that they have. I think they're going to be a good football team. I think this is the best game of the conference. And again, it happens really early, September 21st.
This game's odd. It is the first Big 12 game for Utah, because remember that Baylor game's a non-con.
Right.
But Oklahoma State has lost some games at home that leave you scratching your head. As of last year, they did it. And what was it? South Alabama rolled in there and won.
Got destroyed.
They're capable of having a huge letdown at home, but not typically. And usually it happens when someone sneaks up on them.
Correct.
Kind of catches them off guard. Nobody's going to be off guard in this game.
No.
This feels like the golden matchup to kind of set the new conference in motion. You know what I mean? Like, you've got a team that went to the Big 12 championship last year with an incredible running back, a veteran quarterback, a lot of tools, and a coach that has a lot of experience and a glorious mullet. It's very Big 12. And then you've got Utah rolling in with all the confidence in the world. They feel like they owned the Pac-12, and now they're going to do it to the Big 12. This game's huge. This game's enormous, not just in terms of how the Big 12 pecking order will fall in place early, but what it means for the conference. If Utah rolls into Oklahoma State and kicks ass, they might be right.
Right.
I think they're going to have a fight on their hands. And I think they're going to find out real quick that this conference plays a pretty tough brand of football. Welcome to no sidelines and the paddles. That's maybe Utah fans later, but you will have players run into walls at full speed. And meanwhile, you'll have the backdrop of paddles slapping against those walls.
Correct.
It's a strange environment. The fans are on top of you. The fans are amazing. They're tuned up with some great tailgating. I'm going to be watching this one as long as the schedule makers don't set the K-State time at the exact same time. Don't do that to me. Do not do that to me.
Well, the one thing about this is, speaking of schedule makers, Big 12 schedule makers did it right. Let's get some of these big time showcase games early in the season, and let's get some momentum. Let's get, things going downhill and get people talking about the Big 12 conference. So, hey, these are two of the biggest games: Utah, Oklahoma State at Kansas State. Let's get these out early so people can see us and say, you know what, this is still a really good football conference. Get these games out there early, because the perception with all of that, Fitz, is even if it happens later in the season and maybe we think they're good, it happened later in the season and maybe people weren't paying close enough attention. Where early in the season, people are dying for football. You get these games out there early. Okay, hey, you know what? They got some good football that they're playing down there. So I like when it's happening. I like the fact that the Big 12 are showcasing these games early. And again, just big time football, man. I can't wait for the season to start. I just can't wait.
I would have loved to have been in Stillwater when the schedule was released and people saw, hey, we open host in Utah. And then we go to we go to K-State second. If Oklahoma State survives that, they're going to be like just walking through the conference like, we're the man, going to be petting the mullet. It's a huge test. Oklahoma State, here's a little advice: don't start slow like you did last year. You're going to be in huge trouble this year if you do that.
Yeah, they will be. And it won't look good. It won't look good. But having said that, thanks everybody for tuning in. I appreciate you guys. I know Fitz appreciate you guys. Remember, as always, like, follow, subscribe, and definitely leave those comments. Love the back and forth with you guys. So can't wait, Fitz. We're getting closer. We're getting closer. Every day is a day closer to us having real football. So appreciate everybody being in here. We will get back to you soon. This is the Big 12 Insiders.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.